Hi, Internet viewers. This is Frank Rauscher again. I'm still going through a Q&A on questions I had gotten before and trying to give you some answers. I've discussed it with some of the carvings I've done before, but I want to go over just to get your mind set on how I approach things. I had gotten a question about the sealers for your carvings. If you're intending to paint them, a lot of times I use acrylic paints and it has water in it, and to cut the swelling down that may happen when you apply water with your paint onto the carving, that it swells and you will lose some of your detail that you've done either with the markings with rotary tool or with your burning unit. And usually the burning unit will seal some of it up and that will preserve it. But for the most part, I try to seal anyway, the carving. I remember years ago, we used to use, I shouldn't say this, but we use pine. And pine, the reason why we don't go there anymore, everybody usually grabs a piece of pine when they're first starting to whittle or something like that. And pine has tars in it, which leaches out. And if you do a real nice carving and then you want to paint it and you put a primer on it, and then years later you see this leaching, these spots coming out onto your piece, and that's the nature of pine. It tends to leach out and will ruin a real good looking carving. So we try to stay away from pine, and I've always recommended basswood. At least I taught with basswood in my class because it's ideal for knife carving and it's also ideal for power carving. Tupelo is a wood that is more designed, I find anyway, for power carving and for burning. It'll really do some real nice burning work. So I just want to go over how we seal birds and the history of how we've done this. One person had asked me about gesso, and even before that, years ago, the style that I learned through my mentor, which was Ernie Mulemat at that time, we used to use an oil-based primer, and we would paint the bird white after we got it carved. But it was a whole different process. We didn't really do that much burning. We burned in such a way that we weren't looking for detail. My mentor had since really pushed wood burning to the point that you can paint with the wood burning. He was that good. And not that I'm trying to reach that level, but burning has really come on since way back when. I started in the 70s, and the oil base sort of got lost in there because once you put it down, it wasn't easy to go back and burn on top of this, or even burn and lose detail. Gesso was another item that was used, and I'm going to show you here. This is like Liquitex gesso. And what we used to do is we'd mix some water with this. This is a very heavy, consistent substance that when you mix it, it's white, and it does give you your white base, and it also seals the wood. But because it's so heavy, at least I found it to be, I don't use that as a sealer, because when we used to do, like, here's a kingfisher I did, and once we got to this point, we would paint it white to get a consistent base color that when we start painting, it comes out true, and the wood doesn't affect where the wood may have changes in color. You have a white consistency, and then you start painting. And with this, we have a lot of detailed burning in the piece, and even the texturing in the breast, which was done by stoning. So especially in the wood burning side of this, the situation was that if we use gesso and you didn't water it down enough, it starts filling the voids of the burning, and then you lose your detail. So that was another issue. I kept on watering it down and watering down the substance. We would put it in like a tray, like one of these here paint trays, and you'd put so much gesso and then water. And I always watered it down like crazy. And don't get me wrong, if you're just doing a carving and you don't have a lot of detail, gesso's fine, but for what we're doing, where we're trying to do really fine detailed work on the piece, I try to avoid that. So what I did is I would come in and I would get a rotary brush. Let me see if I have one here that I could show you real quick. And this one here is a horsehair brush. I run this at half speed, and I go all over my carving. And this is using a rotary tool, like a micro grinder or a Dremel or something like that, and you get all the dust out. And that's what you want to do. You really want to get all the dust out before you even think about sealing the piece, even if you were doing it with gesso. Okay, you'll see the dust that comes out of there is unbelievable. You don't realize how much gets caught in there as you've been working the piece. Once you did that, then I used to try to seal the piece itself. What we want to is one other thing too. Before I did clear it all out, the other thing you want to do, like on a beak, I tried to, what's the name, come in with a super glue, and you can get this at a dollar store, and you would get the cheapest one. It's like 3 tubes for $1. It's very watered down, but you want to keep it under control. And if it starts to get runny, you just point it this way so it drops down and doesn't go back into the carving, because you don't want it to get into the textured side of it. So you want to super glue all of the beak, and then it goes into the pores. Once you're done that, and don't get the gel. That was gel I was holding. The other one is like a red lid, and that's the watered down one, and that's what you want to use to seal the beak. Once it penetrates that, you can sand this a little bit, and it gives you a bony look that we're trying to duplicate what the real beak would look like. And I do this on most of the birds. Then when we go to seal it, I get this krylon spray. This originally, the number was 1301, was the number that indicated the krylon spray. It's now 51301, and even this has been discontinued, and I think now that it has like 007 after the 51301, and they've I don't know if they changed the formula or what, but it's similar, and you can get the same thing. It's a clear, it's called here, it's a krylon spray. It's a clear, and it's good for wood, metal, and so on, and it's a gloss. And what this does, it penetrates into the wood, and it seals everything up, and it doesn't leave a white coating on there. I used to sell a product years ago, and it's probably still out there too, that does the sealing and it does the white all in one. It's been a while since I've used that. I don't recall the product anymore, but there are other products out there. But I've been using the krylon spray. If anybody ever needed this krylon spray, the 51301, I do have them. And you can get it through me if you need be. So I use that, and I spray the whole thing, and I can't usually hold it about 6 inches away, and I just spray the whole thing. It looks like it's wet, and then I do portions of it, and make sure I get the tail and everything else. So you want to do that, and then you let it set for, I usually give it an hour. They say it's done in 20 minutes, but I prefer it to really get done well. So that is what I use. Then on top of that, instead of using the gesso, like I said, I would use the titanium white acrylic paint. I would get like a pea size into one of these trays and mix it, the rest of the cup, with water, and really mix it well so all the paint has been dissolved into the water. And then I would paint the whole thing with the white. Okay, beak, everything. And then after that was done, I would let that dry. Now, in some cases, like we did this on the finch, which was the bird I just did recently here, and even with the wren, if I'll bring that into the picture here, if you see the wren that has markings that are still showing through. So if I want not to lose that detail, I would only put so much white that it ghosts in there, but I don't make it white, and then this way, this reflects through the washes, and you get these markings in here from the way you burn it. And now in the tail area, we painted these, okay, and stuff like that. Same way in the cheek area and so on. But this has all been painted, okay. But the markings like in the head here and the way it's textured and everything else, that is done just like you're seeing with the kingfisher here. This will show through, and when you put like that Payne's gray wash over this to tone this thing down and everything else, that'll show through, and you get a real neat effect. And so I used the titanium white acrylic paint for that, and you end up with, here's like a excuse me, a sandpiper that I did. And the sandpiper, I painted the whole thing with that titanium wood. Okay? And that's how you seal the bird and have it primed so that you can start painting on top of this. Now, if you see it, you could see a lot of the ghosting of the way we burnt in here, okay? And you even got it down into the secondaries and primaries and so on. These down here aren't as important. These are more showy up here. So in some cases, we want this to show through, and in other cases, we don't. In the breast area, most of the time, we really get it white, and then if we have to paint details in. Now there's another trick I do too. After I'm done painting, and I'll come back and I'll get my burning pen at a certain temperature. You don't want it real high. I'll go back in and burn some shading in spots. And you got to play with this because it doesn't come right away, and you don't want that hot tip. You want to keep that light, and you start burning it lightly with a lower temperature and get some shadowing in. And you can do that with the titanium white on here. But if I put gesso on there and I tried to do that, the white would pop up and show. So I avoid that. I use the acrylic washes that I put on to the bird. Tends to hold better, does not show the white, and it does allow me to burn over top of the paint, which is something that I've done over the years, and it enhances certain areas that you want. But you got to practice it. It doesn't come right away. And so you do have gesso, which is one, like this. And you can get it, there's a variety of manufacturers. This happens to be Liquitex. But you can get it in small containers, you can get it in big containers, and so on. And I use that predominantly. But this is what I like, the krylon spray. And like I said, it's called 51301, and I think it's 007 now. Check it out when you go into, if you need to get some, you can get it through me. But if you want to get the change out, the number change out, because they tend to, over the years it was 1301, now it's 51301, or it was, now it's another number, but it starts with 51301. I do have that one, but if you need to get it from your source, you can go in and under Krylon, you can see that they've changed that series. 51301 now is another series. It's the same, except that has a few more numbers on it. I find that really works out well. And then I like titanium white as the undercoat to get me to the white, okay? And this isn't the only animal that gets you there. You know, you can use other products as well. But I avoid gesso unless I'm just not worrying about the detailing that may be coming through, okay? That's the style that I've tried to perfect over the period of time. So when it comes to sealing the bird, and it is important because I use bass most of the time, so you don't have that leaching that you're going to get from pine, but it is a good way of coating it. And I'm lost my trend of thought here for a second, but yeah, gesso will do it for just regular carvings that you want to paint and you're not worrying about the detailing on it, because the piece may have its own shape and everything else, which is going to define it, and you don't have all this little detail work we have in. So I hope you got something out of this. I'm just reinforcing questions that I got to trying to iron things out. I don't know if it's helpful or not. I'm looking around to see if I covered all the products here. The one other thing that I wanted to mention, and I may do this in a paintings Q&A too, is matte medium. I used to use a matte medium, like a drop, in with my paint. Not for this, not for sealing it. This is when I go to apply washes on top of my white base here, okay? It tends to allow the paint to flow easier, and it's just a drop now in like what would be a cup that goes where the water and the paint go in here. You put a drop in that medium, and that It just takes the surface tension away, and you have a more controllable wash, and that works out really nice. So I just want to cover you on that. If you have any questions or anything, definitely give me a call. You have my email address, and if anybody wants to contact me beyond that, definitely contact me through the comments section in my video here, or you can email me, and if you want to talk some more, we can even do it with the phone and so on. So definitely follow through on that. I hope you got something out of this one as well. I don't know if I clarified things or confused things. Again, I that's why I'm looking for feedback. So if you have any questions, again, I'll try to give you my approach on things. These are just things I get questioned on at times, and I know it's a little confusing, but there's reasons I go a certain way, and that's not saying like with gesso or something like that. The product has its purpose. It really does. So I hope you enjoyed this Q&A session. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you would join my channel, I'd appreciate that too. And subscribe. And I'll see you on the next Q&A. I'm trying to do a few Q&As in a row here to try to get answers that may be out there that are still hanging, that you guys need some clarification. So see you on the next video. Bye now.